What's good, everybody? FinerBub here. Thanks for checking out the video. Welcome back to the Iceland travel series. Today, we're talking about the only forest we saw the entire time we were in Iceland, and also a dope waterfall hike with epic views that was really windy, and much more. Roll the montage intro with music and stuff. Wow! Alright people, once again, welcome back to the Iceland travel series. If you missed last week's video about glaciers and icebergs and reindeers and waterfalls and tough decisions and being tired, you can click right over here for that. I'll also leave a little description link down below. Otherwise, without further ado, let us begin! The morning after we did the glacier hike and we did that long drive in the East Fjords that I spoke about in the last video, we woke up really late. We had driven like well into the previous night and we were exhausted. We passed out pretty much as soon as we had set up our tents that night, and you've been watching these videos, I know that that's kind of been a theme. At the end of each day, we really just were exhausted at the end of the day and we would just crash. And you know, normally I'd like to do a whole little kumbaya situation, chilling by the fire, but in Iceland you're not allowed to make campfires because not that many trees grow there in the first place, and there's just a lot of really fragile plant life and stuff there, so it's just too damaging to the natural environment. Yeah, no campfires, gas stoves. We woke up by the lake, befriended a local duck. To be honest, we really needed the rest. It was a good thing we slept in, and let that be a lesson to you. Don't burn out. It's important to sleep so that you can actually do more later and actually enjoy yourself, because if you get too tired and too cranky, then even if you're pushing yourself hard, you're defeating the whole purpose of going on an epic vacation in the first place. So it's definitely important to make sure you get in some sleep. How you get that is up to you, but yeah, this was necessary. We woke up late, we sort of walked around a few trails in the area, and then we decided to do this little hike that leads up to this lookout point on this cliff that was kind of near this little church building with a parking lot that we found. And we hiked up to the top, we made some tea up there with our gas stoves, and we took some pictures from the top. It was really a beautiful view. What was cool about where we were standing is we were on this cliff. You could see over the tops of the trees, then you could see the lake past the trees, and then you could see the other side of the lake, which was bare. There were no trees on the other side of the lake, and then you could see the sky. So it was kind of this like cool stripy composition. I'll show you a photo I took. That was with my little point and shoot camera. It was just a cool view, a nice sort of lazy morning hike, walk. On the way back, Micah and I got a little bit ahead of the other guys, and we must have taken a wrong turn or missed a turn or something like that, because we just got totally lost. And eventually we just decided to bushwhack all the way down to the road, because we knew that the road was running between where we were and the lake, so we knew we would hit it eventually. We just kept going downhill. So we got to the road and we were obviously not anywhere near where we were supposed to be, so we walked down the road in the direction we thought we were supposed to go in, and turns out we were about a mile away. So it took us like 15 minutes or so to walk down, and it was hot. It got really hot because, like I said, you know, we weren't near the coastline anymore. It wasn't as windy, and we walked, and then we could see the parking lot on the other side of these horse pastures, and so we sort of bushwhacked again, trying to avoid these paddocks because we didn't want to get like eaten by horses or whatever horses do to people. We eventually made it back to the parking lot, and the other two guys weren't even there, so we just chilled for a bit. Eventually they showed up, and we drove to the other side of the lake where we did this awesome hike up to this waterfall, which is called Litlanesfoss. At least that's how it's spelled. Litlanes Foss. This is a super windy hike. It's on the other side of the lake, so I guess like the way the airflow works, you got your ocean over here, and then you got your mountains over here, and the wind comes like this, and I guess the mountains kind of protect this side of the valley where all the trees were, and then you got your lake, and then you got your other side of the valley, so the wind just kind of skips these trees, but then doesn't let anything grow on this side. The cool thing about the areas with no trees is that you can just see so far at all times. Iceland just has epic views, and there are all these crazy clouds that create this just like crazy drama in the atmosphere, even in the middle of the day. And you can get some great photos, even if you have like a super old point and shoot camera. Case in point right here, equipment doesn't really make a difference when it comes to this stuff, because if you're in a beautiful place, it's going to look beautiful no matter what. So this hike was, again, more of an uphill walk. You know, none of the hikes we did were really full day hikes. They were all sort of like maximum like an hour up, an hour down. This was probably less than that, but yeah, you sort of like walk up this hill for a while. There are like some stairs like built into the side of the hill. You go through this like sheep gate thing, and then you sort of go down into this gully, and there's like this lookout point. There's 2 tiers to this waterfall. So there's like one way at the top, and then there's like another similar one further down, and you can actually take a picture with both of them in the frame. But yeah, there are some cool lookout points, like where there's like a little like Pride Rock situation. You could do a whole selfie stick business. It's a cool place. It's very sort of gravelly and rocky, so you got to be careful that you don't like slip, because you'll just like fall down this ravine. But yeah, very cool to see the rock formations and things like that. And so you kind of like get out of the wind when you go down this gully a little bit, and then you like come back around the first waterfall, and then you just have this, I don't know, probably like 10-minute walk just like on this one chute where you're just like staring at the main waterfall, and you just keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And so it's not like the view changes very much, but you want to get all the way up there. I don't even think we went all the way to the top. We like got to a certain point, we're like, okay, we can see it, let's go back, because we have other things we need to do, and this is like the millionth waterfall we've seen. But anyway, still a beautiful hike, and really incredible to see these natural landscapes. And yeah, so it started raining a little bit on the way back, and it got cold and rainy and windy, and obviously, you know, we had our gear with us, like our rain gear and stuff. But Iceland is really a place, I don't know if you've ever gone hiking in New Hampshire in like November or something like that, but yeah, you're just like, you start off cold, so you put on all your layers, you hike for like 5 minutes, you get warm, you take them off, you keep hiking, and then as soon as you stop, it's windy, you got to put the layers back on. So it's good to have a system of clothing that is conducive to these types of activities. And so we kept having to like take our layers off, put them back on, stop, you know, do that whole jig. And on the way down, because it had been raining, you know, all this weather had moved in, and you could see these crazy clouds coming in through the valley, and it just like created all this awesome light. Got some cool pictures of these epic views. It was just a really enjoyable, aesthetically pleasing situation. We finally made it back down to the car. After a while, it was really windy, and we were all cold, noses were running and stuff. And you know, once again, super thankful for the butt warmers in our rental car. They were so amazing. We were super happy about that. I know I keep repeating the butt warmers thing, but it was so clutch, especially when we got wet, because you could just sit on them and then your pants would just dry while we were going to the next place. So yeah, after that, we kept driving for a little while. We stopped in this town that has this like airstrip, and you know, we got gas and we got snacks at the grocery store there, just sort of stocked up. And then we kept driving, kept pulling over to take pictures and stuff, because there's just so many waterfalls along the road. Even though it was getting dark, it was still really beautiful. And then, you know, it got really foggy and cold and rainy, and we finally made it to our campsite, and we couldn't see anything. It was so dark and windy and rainy. And this was the first night that the camping, well, it was probably the only night. It was our worst night of camping. It was raining. We were trying to set up dinner. We had these little MSR stoves, and we were trying to cook dinner. Would not heat up the food because of how windy and cold and rainy it was. We didn't really do too well in the way of dinner that night, and we were all kind of tired and cranky. Created a little bit of tension in the group, but you know, we all got over it, obviously. But it's just these tough situations that it's important to stay positive, because you remember, you're there to enjoy yourself. So you don't, you know, even though you're in a tough situation, you really want to maintain a positive attitude and try to appreciate the memories you're creating by going through a bit of a crucible together. So once you get into the sleeping bag, it's fine, even if it's raining. It's honestly really relaxing to lie down in a tent when you can hear the rain pitter-pattering on the the rain fly on top of the tent, and obviously we staked it down really well so that it wasn't going anywhere. And a lot of these campsites have sort of bricks and rocks lying around that you can put on top of your tent pegs if you're worried about things blowing away. But yeah, once you're inside the tent, you're not really going to blow away because you're heavier than most of the rocks that you're going to pick up. We were so cold and just like miserable, or we were just like, let's have a couple beers and we'll just sit in the car with the butt warmers on and we'll warm up with all of our pajamas and stuff once we changed. And then, you know, once you're all warmed up and you're feeling good, then you just like quickly run back in the tent, get in your sleeping bag while you're all warm. Yeah, it's easier to fall asleep that way as opposed to being really cold and then getting in the sleeping bag and trying to warm up. But if you need a little camping tip or whatever, I learned this on a NOLS course I took in Wyoming. We did this like 2-week backcountry camping in the snow thing in the Tetons, and they taught us that if you're cold in your sleeping bag, just like start doing sit-ups in your sleeping bag and it'll really warm you up. So you can try that if you want. It's not that easy to fall asleep after doing a bunch of sit-ups just because you just get your blood pumping, but warming up in the car was definitely nice. We had booked an Airbnb for the next night. Part of what got us to sleep that night was just the idea that the next night we were going to be able to take a shower for the first time in a while and dry our clothes, just sleep in a bed and recharge our batteries. That's it for this one. To be continued next week. If you're tired and cranky and you're at the top of a mountain looking at a beautiful view, you're still going to be tired and cranky and you're not going to be able to appreciate it as much, which sucks. If you're sleep deprived and you're hungry and you're not taking care of yourself properly, you're just going to burn out. And, you know, I know that there are people who can just go like crazy and keep going and going and going, but usually they do that in small spurts, you know, 2 or 3 days or 3 or 4 days. But if you're on a 10-day trip like we were, there was no way we were going to be able to stay up that late or keep going as hard as we could the whole time while still enjoying ourselves. You know, it's one thing to be able to accomplish something physically. The complementary component to doing that is actually enjoying the things that you're doing. And if you're on a vacation where the point is to have fun, then that should be your top priority. You shouldn't be prioritizing seeing things that you're not going to be able to enjoy if you're exhausted. Look, if you're on a beach sipping margaritas in Cancun, it's a totally different story because the very nature of those vacations is rest and relaxation. You're sitting on a beach. You're lying on a beach. You're relaxing. It is rest. The activities you're doing are relaxing. But if you're on an active trip where you're hiking and you're camping and you got to drive a lot to see the different things that you're doing, you know, it's important to stay well rested because otherwise it's just not going to be fun. You're going to burn out and you're going to miss things that you wanted to see. You know, obviously we missed things, but we knew we weren't going to be able to see everything. There were definitely times where our energy level dictated the mood. Most of the time we were able to overcome it, but you know, there were definitely a few moments where we could have benefited from a little more R&R. So yeah, just some food for thought. The next takeaway from this part of the trip that's also really applicable to trips where you're doing a lot of active hiking, outdoor activities, things like that, is that your outdoor gear is the most important investment you need to make for the trip. I know everybody wants their 5D Mark IVs and their 1DX Mark IIs and all the fancy cameras and fancy video gear and the gimbals and all that stuff. And, you know, I don't have any of that, but, you know, I definitely can get into a mood where I'm striving to make the best quality videos that I have the capability to make, and sometimes you feel as though if you had equipment that could maybe shoot in slow motion or in a higher resolution that it might improve your videos that much more. But I can tell you right now that investing in the camping gear is so much more important. And like I said about the waterfall hike that we did in this video, if you're in a beautiful place, it's going to look beautiful regardless of whether you're shooting on a 5D Mark IV or on a cell phone camera. If you're spending, you know, thousands of dollars on a fancy camera with fancy lenses and you blow your budget so that you can't afford a tent that's warm enough or a rain jacket or the proper outdoor gear, then you're going to suffer a lot more. And you're not going to be able to do all the things that you wanted to do in order to get photos of those things that are supposedly going to look so amazing. So there's definitely a trade-off between actually getting to the place that you want to take a photo of and spending all your money on a camera that doesn't get used. Person who is dedicated, who makes videos on their phone and who, you know, uses what they have to the utmost potential that they can get out of it is going to be 1,000 times more successful and satisfied with their work than the person who buys the $4,000 $1,000 camera that sits on a shelf all the time. Basically, if you're too cold to leave the car because you don't have the proper gear, then it doesn't matter what kind of camera you have because you're not going to take a photo of anything. And if you spend all your money on camping gear and you go out with just your cell phone, at least you have that, and at least you made it to the beautiful spot where you can take a beautiful picture, regardless of whether it's on a sensor that's the size of my head or, you know, a tiny little GoPro or a cell phone sensor. So invest in good camping gear and good hiking gear and rain gear and wind protection and insulated layers that are quick drying. Synthetics are good. Merino wool is better. It's got more antimicrobial properties, especially if you're camping and you're not going to be able to take a shower or wash your clothes for a few days. It's going to start to get stinky, and the synthetics, they really hold on to that stink a lot, whereas if you're wearing wool or merino wool is more comfortable. But if you're wearing wool, it cuts that smell out a little bit so that you can be a little more comfortable for a little longer, and you're not going to feel like you're roughing it quite as much. Plus, if you're wearing wool, you know, never wear a cotton t-shirt in any of these situations. They say cotton kills and whatever, you know, maybe so, but wool retains like 80% of its thermal value when it's soaking wet, and cotton does not. Cotton will just make you freezing cold if it's wet. So if you start getting sweaty or anything like that, and you're in a windy environment, you're going to get cold pretty fast in a cotton t-shirt. But if you're wearing a merino wool t-shirt or a synthetic t-shirt that's quick drying, they definitely have better thermal properties, so that even if you're sweaty and wet, you're not losing as much heat because of that moisture. Alrighty, I know this was a bit of a long one, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you felt like you learned something useful or you just felt entertained, be sure to share it with your friends on social media and anyone who you know who might be thinking of planning a trip to Iceland. I know this video sort of turned into a little bit of a preach speech there at the end, so you know, take it for what it is. I think it's important advice, and you're never going to be able to plan a trip perfectly, and you know, you can't plan for every single condition, and you can't plan for the things that, you know, you just happen upon without planning. You know, there are plenty of places we stopped along the way to take pictures of waterfalls and things like that weren't part of our itinerary, but definitely slowed us down and prevented us from seeing other things. So, you know, just make sure you're balancing your expectations with your plans, and you'll enjoy yourself. I personally like just going to a place without any plans and experiencing the new country or the new place from more of like an exploration perspective. It's nice to have everything planned out because then you actually see every little thing that you want to do, but you know, it's kind of exciting to sort of read about the thing on the car ride over as you're about to get to it and just be like, oh, what's that? And then like look it up, or just see something cool and then learn about it more afterwards. I mean, I've done a lot of research since I got home from Iceland, and I feel like I've learned a ton since I got home that I didn't even know while I was there. But you know, I wouldn't have been interested to do the research if I hadn't gone there in the first place. So I don't know, I feel like sometimes if you do too much research in advance, it can sometimes create expectations based on other people's impressions that aren't necessarily going to get met when you actually experience the thing for yourself. So yeah, I don't know, I just like that exploratory element to things, and I don't really care if I miss one thing here or there as long as I enjoy the trip overall. And I think that's really the key to having a great time, is leaving room for surprises, but making sure that you have the opportunity to experience those surprises by preparing yourself with the right gear, because otherwise, like I said, you're just going to be stuck in the car, and if you're cold and wet, you're not going to want to get out and take a picture of another waterfall. It's going to spray you with water. Really getting rambly here. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching this video. If you think you might enjoy more content of the sort, consider subscribing and ringing the bell to be notified when I upload videos. I'm trying to go once a week here with this Iceland series. We'll see how long I can maintain that, but you know, doing my best. And you know, it's all a learning process for me. So if you have any tips about making videos or anything you guys want to see or anything that I talked about in this video, be sure to leave a comment below. And if you've been to Iceland and did any of the things that I did and had some different takeaways, please share it below. I'd really love to hear about it, and I'm sure anyone who's interested in taking a trip to Iceland would benefit from that as well. I want to create a environment that fosters a discussion, not just, you know, me spewing my opinion at you. I want to hear from you and try to improve constantly and just, you know, create an environment where people can feel comfortable asking questions without the pressures of I don't know, just like being embarrassed of a certain level of ignorance. I don't know. I mean, I'm no expert on any of this stuff. You know, I've only been to Iceland one time, and I'm just trying to share my experience. And I had a great time, and I want everyone who wants to go there to have a great time too. And even if you don't want to go there, I think you'll have a great time if you just prepare properly. Obviously, it's Iceland. Everyone's like, I don't want to go on a cold place for vacation, but man, there's so much more of the world than beaches. Yeah, just how I feel. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe. Yeah, I'd really appreciate it. And if you hit that bell, you'll be notified when I upload next week's video about Iceland's sustainable energy sources, volcanic lava fields, and all of these bubbling pits of doom that we went to that were really cool. Steamy geysers and smoking piles of rocks and those sorts of things. Man, talking is exhausting. I'm gonna have a sip of water here. For more information on the places we visited and a full list of the gear we brought with, be sure to check out the full article at FinerBub.com/Iceland. Alrighty, that concludes this week's broadcasts. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Really do appreciate it. If you're planning your next trip, don't let the small details stress you out. Remember, life's an adventure, so relax. Breathe in the outdoors, and don't forget to appreciate the finer things in life. I'll see you out there, people.